Hey there. Welcome to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders, the podcast that will empower you to unleash your inner strength and embrace leadership with confidence. I'm your host, Katie Winchenbach, and I'm excited to have you join us as we dive into the experiences of extraordinary women who've shattered glass ceilings and redefined success on their own terms. Get ready to be motivated, challenged, and equipped with the tools and strategies to lead fearlessly in your own life and career. It is my pleasure to welcome Jayme Anne Goldberg to the podcast today. Jayme is the founder of Consequential Flowers, which is a super cool artificial intelligence, educational app. And before that, Jayme had a really impressive career and a ton of leadership roles that she's going to be here to tell us about. Jayme, welcome.
Thank you, Katie. I'm really excited to be here.
So to kick it off, Jayme, I will have you introduce yourself a little more to our audience and briefly describe your journey to getting to where you are now.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I would say that my career journey has a theme throughout all of it, although it's been in several different industries. And that theme is that I have always been ahead and seen where the markets are going and where opportunities are before other people have seen them. And that has presented in itself a lot of challenges too, because when you see opportunities before other people do, you're on the leading edge, and sometimes they call it the bleeding edge, where no one else sees things and you're too early, and it takes a lot of effort and energy to get other people to come along and see your vision. And I started my career after graduating in Penn State by going into the investment world in alternative investments. And I saw inefficient, fragmented industries, opportunities in the real estate investment industry. Was pretty inefficient before everything, the commercial real estate industry became more investment focused and moved to Wall Street with real estate investment trusts and commercial mortgage-backed securities. And so there's a lot of inefficiency and fragmentation. And I worked on Wall Street early in my career. I saw inefficiencies and fragmentation and opportunity to build networks in the disaster restoration and reconstruction area. And I worked on building a company specifically to take advantage of the trends where full service disaster restoration was becoming more of from transitioning from a local to a regional and then national opportunity. Just for example, when there's a flood or a fire, someone has to come in and do the reconstruction and cleanup. And I saw that opportunity after following the trends of real estate and who was owning real estate becoming more regional and then national. And then I transitioned that into inefficiencies and fragmentation in the consumer data analytics industry. And I saw in I think it was 2012, in 2012, I left the finance industry to go into consumer data analytics to help. It was very early on to help brands, organizations monetize and extract value out of very specific data, behavioral data from consumers. And we helped my company that I had before, Consequential Flowers, was called SilverLine. And we helped, there's a platform, one of the largest activity tracking platforms, Strava, to develop a whole revenue stream, a whole new area to monetize user data with sponsor partners. And we help Lululemon with user data get established in the running industry, and specifically the men's segment. And that led me to where I am now with Consequential Flowers, where I see this massive fragmentation and inefficiency in leadership traits and development that is essential to thrive, but not ever taught in school and learned only from career and life experience.
And I am personally a huge fan of Consequential Flowers, so I want us to dive into that. But before we do that, there are a couple of things that you mentioned along your journey that I want to dig a little bit more into. And the first of that is you mentioned starting your career and working on Wall Street, which is known to be, kind of a male-dominated industry, a difficult place to work. And I'd love to hear a little more about your experience with that and some of the lessons that you learned from being in that space.
Absolutely. What I think the most important lesson that applies to everyone who's going on a journey in their career and life is that the experiences that we have that do not fit with our values and ourselves and our passions are super important because they make us be more clear on what is important to us and what our values are. And on Wall Street, to give you some numbers, some timing context to share like often how early I am, and how I've dealt with that and what I learned from it was that this was in 1996. I was writing models. I was creating the models, the financial models to do underwriting. So evaluate loan applications for hotels and office buildings and malls so that those commercial properties could get loans that were then securitized, divided up into securities. And I was underwriting these and I had to evaluate and analyze all these deals. And my nickname was the deal killer because I had very conservative, realistic assumptions for expenses that were growing normally and revenue that was growing according to what the market said, and other assumptions that were too conservative and made the loan requests, we were declining these loan requests. And so I was like, you know what? I don't want to change the model because I don't believe in having aggressive income and cutting expenses because I don't believe this is going to work. And so I created an automated model so I didn't have to touch it. I was like, you people go do the model. I'm not changing these. And that's a big ethics issue. Like, oh, well, okay, just because I'm not doing it, am I a part of it? And when I was asked to stay, I said to my managing director, like it slipped out of my mouth without thinking. They asked if I'd stay, and I said, no, but when this whole thing falls apart, call me. I'll come back and clean it up for you. And it crashed in 2008. And what that did is it taught me, and like the lesson learned is that your values have to align with where you are. And if there's something called moral stress. And if that is when there's misalignment in your values and your culture that you're in. And there's books about it, and there's some in particular that have done studies that show your performance can drop like 20 to 25%, if you are in a place that your culture is not a fit. So what that taught me is that I'm not, there's something called they call it like a deal junkie. You get high on doing deals. And I realized like, I don't get excited about the deal. I get excited about the impact and what happens after it. So all my choices in my career and the companies that I've been with after Wall Street have all been, and it's not to say we don't need Wall Street, definitely need deals. We need a place for all that activity. It's just that my role is not there, and my values are in, like, I want to stay with something after there's been an initial transaction. So that alignment of values and making sure that our choices are in line with our values, where we spend our time and energy is like the biggest lesson from that.
And I think that is so important, because often if we end up in a place that isn't in alignment, I think it's easy for especially women to think of it as a mistake or a waste of time. But I love that you're focused on what you can learn from that, and the fact that it actually helps you find where you need to be.
100%. And Katie, there's something I'd add to it. When I started Consequential Flowers, I did a massive survey of experienced leaders. And that is people who their profile was, they've been, they're in high level roles like managing directors, presidents, CEOs, senior leaders. And I did a survey to ask all of these people, because I wanted to determine what my focus was for Consequential Flowers, like what the attributes were important in priority to start focusing on. And I found that I had people rank specific. There were like 10 different attributes that I asked, what are you rank these as being important? And then I said, what is another one that you think is important in leadership that is not listed? And the overwhelming fill in the blank text from the feedback from these leaders was, I think that culture and the values are the most important thing. And I wish that I had known that, because I stayed in places too long, and I realized that my performance where I was underperforming because of where I was and the values and the culture, not because of me. So without prompting, that was the predominant topic that these senior leaders wish they had known, and that if they had known, they would have changed or adapted their journey along the way to accelerated and made more joyful their career progress.
And thinking about finding that fit, finding that culture, how have you been able to do that? You know, you've gone from Wall Street to running your own company, and all of that takes a lot of ability to listen to your intuition and have confidence in the decisions that you're making. And how have you honed those skills?
That's a great question. And I would say it's more about courage than confidence, because confidence you build, I guess it's a combination. Confidence is what you have when you reflect on what you have already done. And as women, to ourselves, we believe, like very often, and I'm there right there included, is that we only have confidence in something if we've done it already. And so we limit ourselves to, and the world will only have confidence in in us if we have done something already. And that's a different view than people have generally for men, that he's promising, like that seems like a good challenge, a good reach for them. And I think with me, I've relied on my confidence, that I am very focused on my technical skills and very obsessive with analytics and data, so that when I see an opportunity or have an idea, it is based on so much sound research, and I have confidence in that content and my ability to get insights from it and make decisions on it. And then what is needed is the courage to then talk to the right people about it. And they're two completely different things. And the courage is sourced, it's fueled by the passion that I have to do something, like to accomplish something, or in the subject matter that I am working in. So that's how I did it, is very prepared, very technically prepared, like the best one in the room, because you have to be as the youngest and only female. And then thinking about what courage means and then how to execute on that with massive purpose, massive alignment of purpose. Like I wouldn't find the courage to go do this in, like to develop a cooking school, because I don't want to develop a cooking school. I think they're amazing, but I'm saying like that's not what my passion is. But since right now I am obsessed with accelerating next gen leadership, like the courage just comes. I don't have to think about it.
I think that's so important too, thinking about not just where your skills are, but where your passion is. And I feel a lot of times that's something that isn't thought about enough when we're trying to determine what is a good next step for us.
You're 1,000% right. And in working with a lot of early careers, college students in early career, like young people, what I have found is like if someone is in law or in tech or in healthcare, they're thinking about that industry as a silo. And just going back to the cooking example, imagine if you're in technology and you're AI and you also have a passion for cooking. There could be a massive opportunity to look in the cooking, the culinary industry to apply AI experience, apply technology. Or there could be a massive opportunity if you're in law and you're pretty interested in media and social media, for example. Like how do you apply law to social media, and how do you do that in this evolving, like very fast evolving industry where everything is just changing so fast? And this crossover of this different lens that we look at opportunities, it has to smash silos. I say smash silos all the time and look at things differently and blend them with your passion. And that's where the courage, the curiosity, like all those resilience, all those attributes that are essential come often without thought because you're just driven by the purpose.
Let's dig in now. Since we are talking about purpose and we're talking about passion, let's dig into Consequential Flowers, because I know not only is it absolutely incredible, but it's something that you have a tremendous amount of passion for. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with Consequential Flowers, tell us a bit about what it is and what really inspired you to pursue this.
Consequential Flowers is an EdTech company that develops software applications to accelerate leadership growth. So our mission is to accelerate next-gen leadership so that they can thrive in this fifth industrial revolution, which is AI and machine learning. Things are moving so quickly, and every industry, every role will be affected in some way by technology. And that just brings a whole different approach to learning and growth and career development. It's not just in the tech industry, it's every industry. And I have this mission because I believe, and based not just on my own experience, but on all the surveys, that so much is learned after like 20 years of experience that is not taught in school. And that is inefficient. That's fragmented. There is no reason for people to need to wait until they're 40 or 45 to learn how to advocate or to negotiate or learn what a sponsor is or learn what a mentor is or to habituate saying no and having a boundary. Like there's so many to habituate reflection, like all of these attributes. There's a leadership model that we have, that's a fixed model, but there's a million ways, there's 100 million ways to execute and to grow using this model. And we have blended neuroscience, like learning how the brain learns, with responsible AI and machine learning, so new technology and leadership expertise, so that we can personalize and adapt the entire experience for people to fit them. Like there is no, like just like Spotify has 100 million songs. Like if you went to a website and there was just like 100 million songs that you could choose from and you couldn't sort them or see them, or one wasn't delivered at the right time in the right place, it's going to be very hard to find. But if Spotify has like a recommended playlist for you based on everything it knows about you, then it will be delivering the right content at the right time. So I see this massive opportunity to accelerate leadership growth using responsible AI. And that means like respect for privacy and security as being paramount, and eliminating biases in models. So I see this massive opportunity with technology to accelerate leadership growth. And we don't have, there's so much urgency. We don't have time to wait for people who are in their 20s. And it's unnecessary for them to go through decades to figure things out in such a fast moving environment. We have to get everyone like the knowledge in a way they can adapt it and use it like right now.
And since you are so focused on this development and helping bring leaders to the forefront, what are some changes that you hope to see for women leaders in the next 5 or 10 years?
What I'm hoping to see, and then this is my hypothesis, as people learn and normalize what a path to thrive is, and they see that other leaders and they get recommended behaviors and topics that normalize making changes, looking for fit with themselves, and being more visible, their careers are going to be more fluid and evolve at a more, I'd say, rapid pace, like more changes, more intentional choices to adapt along the way. And I think that overall, people will be, what I'm hoping and believe is that people will be less blinded by setting initial goals, because sometimes we set goals and are blinded by other opportunities or other environmental changes that should dictate a healthy choice to change that goal. But we've normalized making changes, and we have normalized building, we call it a root radius, which is in our BloomRadius. A root radius is your network that you build, and there's different types of roots, that we've normalized that people are going to have a lot more support, thicker and richer, deeper support network, root radius, when they along the way. And I'm seeing that now with people who use BloomRadius. If you look at like my own tracking of my network that I built over time, I didn't have any sponsors. I didn't know what one was until I was 40. I thought that like this message that we're given, you have to be an individual, a rugged individualist, and the people who are successful do everything like on their own. You have to be self-reliant. It's weak to have support, power, like shared, used for your benefit, to get introductions, like that's all negative. And my thinking is that we're going to normalize that. And Indra Nooyi wrote My Life in Full. It was a phenomenal book. And I didn't realize, like if you look at her book, she has a massive network of friends and family, sponsors, mentors, network along her entire career path. And it wasn't until I was like whenever that book came out, like a handful of years ago, that I was like, oh, that's what a network of like someone who is this CEO and chairperson of PepsiCo looks like. That's how they did it. Because I didn't have that. So if you look at the people on BloomRadius, they are like 20, 22, 26, 30 years old, and their root networks that they're tracking and cultivating intentionally are huge because we've normalized that's what you do. And they're also making changes and their goals are changing. They're adapting where they want to be and how they define success based on their experience, not just like what they set out to do at the beginning. So this richer network, we're going to see more networks, and we're going to see more adaptation in the goals path. And because of those two things, I believe we're going to, as measured by positions, joy rating, career satisfaction, compensation, that we're going to see a lot stronger trends because of those changes.
I really love that as you're looking at the folks who are using BloomRadius, that there is this trend of not only building your network, which I think is so important, but also the adaptability and the willingness of younger leaders to pivot and to really be thoughtful about what the next moves that they're making are.
Yeah, and normalize that change. There's one of the people on BloomRadius who was very early to join, so I've gotten a chance to interact with him personally a lot more, was at a job for 2 years after college, and they were thinking, the culture wasn't a fit, and they were thinking, I want to make a change, but that I'm not comfortable making a change because is that too soon? Like, shouldn't I be somewhere for like 5 years, 10 years? Like, what is the norm? And through using BloomRadius and having those conversations, which shaped our priorities and our application, we normalized that making change is essential. And I'd add one more thing, Katie. This normalization of building a network comes down to a level of everyday behavior. And of the students, I often talk to students and give presentations. A lot of them are at Penn State, where I went undergraduate and have worked closely with their faculty. And in presentation after presentation, I take these live polls that are anonymous digitally, and a third, this is consistent across every single session, a third of the people in the audience at the school have said that they have a question that they want to ask someone in a network, like an experienced professional, and they will not ask it because they're afraid of being judged.
Wow.
So do the math.
That speaks really poignantly, I think, about the norms that we've established in the workforce, where people are afraid to ask those questions instead of seeing that there's power in asking questions.
Yes. And we actually, Consequential Flowers is using music because that helps to trigger different parts of the brain. We wrote a song on Spotify and Apple and all streaming platforms. It's called Ask Away. And it's to normalize. It goes with our SEED, our leadership database item, about asking questions. And there's a line in the song, it's the third verse that is my favorite. And it says that if you're being judged, this is much more eloquent in the song, it's fun, but if you're being judged, it's a mirror you see. Those who lift you up show their ability, and those who don't, that's a reflection of them being, not being confident in who they are. It's not you.
I think that's so true. And I think it's really important that we're able to normalize asking questions and really make that mainstream, because I think asking questions is such a key way to help develop leaders.
Absolutely.
So Jayme, we are amazingly almost at the end of our time. So I want to ask you one final question, and that is, if you could give some advice to your younger self when you were starting out, what would that piece of advice be?
That is a question I've asked myself a lot, and it's part of our, we have a hashtag, Bloom Bold, be bold, bold. I say that a couple times to reinforce, being bold is essential. And if you have the confidence in yourself and your ideas, and your work, your technical skill, which if you're the youngest person in the room and you're the only female especially, you definitely need to be better than, you need to be very confident and know your stuff. And I think that part of being bold is being seen. And it's really hard, and something I've always struggled with is to let people know what I'm doing, and to have my voice heard and be visible and get credit, because it's really hard, and often women are expected to just serve and be invisible, and people will not automatically recognize you if you're not advocating for yourself. So it's not only in the bold action, it's the bold visibility as well.
Thank you so much, Jayme. This was such a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on, being vulnerable, sharing your story, and all of these insights.
Oh, it was a complete pleasure. Your questions are amazing, and I'm really excited to continue listening to the podcast because I get so much out of it.
Thank you, Jayme. Pop down to the show notes to find links to Jayme's profiles and to learn more about the work she is doing with Consequential Flowers. Thanks for tuning in to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders. If you've been inspired by today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a friend who could use a confidence boost. Remember to subscribe so you won't miss out when we drop our next season. And if you found our conversations valuable, please leave us a 5-star review. Your support helps us continue to amplify the voices of incredible women leaders and inspire more fearless female trailblazers. We'll see you next time.